What's good, mi gente? Welcome back. It's your boy Raul. This is How Do You Say Success in Spanglish. And today, my guest is Rocio Perez. Rocio, how's it going?
It's going fantastic. Thank you for having me on your show today.
Definitely. I appreciate you taking the time, especially early morning for you over there, to kind of go on here and talk with me. And I'm really looking forward for you to be able to share your journey, your story. You have very inspirational journey that you're going to tell us about. And so I'm really excited to kind of learn and kind of get some more info about the things you offer. So just to start off, your little background about you, Rocio is the creator of the first self-coaching system in the world, the MindShift system, the MindShift Game, and the MindShift Game TV show. She is a global leader and sought after life changing speaker, leadership trainer, and author who has helped transform people around the world. Rocio's unique transformational approach meets people where they are and guides them to expand their awareness and boost their confidence so they can intentionally create their version of a happy, healthy, and meaningful life. Rocio, that's pretty awesome. It's great having someone that looks to improve people's life, and it's amazing how many people I find that are always looking to help others. So I'm really glad to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm excited to connect with the audience and share the journey to touch, move, and inspire people to achieve their version of a happy, healthy, and meaningful life.
Yeah, and I think that's the goal for a lot of us. So I guess to start off, let's learn a little bit about you. Who is Rocio Perez?
Well, Rocio Perez, I'm an author, speaker, leadership trainer, but I want to talk about my journey. Is that where we want to go?
Yeah, yeah.
Journey of a little girl. When I was growing up, I was that little girl that was so excited. I'm like, someday I'm going to grow up and I'm going to become a teacher. And I would run around with my tattered books and I would tell like my Tío Sergio, someday I'm going to grow up to become a teacher. And I felt like I spoke for hours and hours. Like that was my main focus. I was that rare kid that would cry because I wanted to go to school. School was like the place that I wanted to be. I would speak with my older brother and say, "Hey, brother, what's your vision for the future? This is what I'm going to be." So always excited on the ABC 1, 2, 3, whatever. I was always involved in things and very excited to be so. Yet the reality was very far fetched. I grew up in extreme poverty and abuse. I contemplated suicide at the age of 5. I ran away from home at 12, got pregnant at 14. And by the time I was 15 years old, instead of having a quinceañera, I had a baby. And at that moment, knowing that I was Latina, uneducated, menial labor, my parents didn't care. I was in an abusive relationship with somebody 8 years my senior. I knew that my son didn't stand a chance. And so I went on and knocked on to the Community College of Denver's doors so I can get into university. And I couldn't get in. They had told me like, "Okay, you're 15 years old, you can't come to university." Subsequently, make a long story short, I went ahead and emancipated myself from my parents so I can go on to university.
Okay.
A battle uphill both ways.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine, and it seems like. And once first, thank you so much for sharing, and I know we'll get into a little more about your journey, but yeah, like you said, a battle both ways going up, and so I guess to kind of start off, there's a lot to unpack with a lot of what you've talked about, and so you said early on you had to emancipate. Was that before or after you've had your son?
My
Yeah.
son.
So was that before or after you had
It
your
was
son?
after I had my son.
Okay, so you had to was the driving force for emancipation to get to school, or was it also just a combination of everything? I had to get myself out of everything and move, and only way to move forward was to get emancipated.
All of the above, and I knew school was the only way out, education, and
Mhm.
that power to keep moving forward, so
And was education something you always wanted? I know you said you always wanted to be a teacher, and was that a driving factor that you had internally, or was there some sort of external factor? You talked about a Theo. Was that somebody like? Was there somebody in your life that kind of said college is the way to go, or did you just kind of always knew?
I always knew. It was always inside of me. I wanted to make sure that I went on to university. I never felt like I belonged in the grades that I was in.
Okay.
Yes, I was held back. So that's one reason, but the
Yeah.
other reason, it was like, I just didn't see it. I would do my uncle's homework, and I was in the 7th grade, and he was in the 12th grade. I didn't see it as a point for me at that time to go through high school, and I wanted to make sure that I moved on as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I mean, I stayed back in first grade, so I'm very used to the idea of I kind of felt like for me, it was kind of a way to help me in the long run because I think I've succeeded a lot better with that saved than anything else. And so you said you felt that you needed the education and that education was an important factor of your life. But obviously, you ran through all these different challenges, especially having a kid at an early age. Uh, um, did that change your trajectory, or did you feel like it helped give you that motivation to get emancipated and go to college?
It definitely helped me because I knew my son didn't stand a chance in the world, and I needed to go out and create that for us, for both of us, to make sure that he had a better future, that he didn't have to live what I lived through as a child. And so I grew up in abuse, domestic violence, alcoholism, you just name it. It was not a good place to be.
No, definitely, definitely. And so when you said you went after you emancipated, you tried to go into college. You were 15. What was that path like to get into college at that point? Did you have to go get a GED and then try to get into school, or how did that work?
That was an interesting journey. Thank you for asking that. I actually had to wait until I was accepted, and I wouldn't be accepted until I was 16. Started university at 17, and I didn't even have a GED back then. Okay, remember, this is literally exactly 30 years ago
Oh, wow.
that this happened. 33, forget 30, it was 33 years old. My son's now 33, and so it's fascinating to see that along the way. But yes, that's what I did. I went ahead and went on to university. I did well. And there was a point in time where they were asking me, it's like, okay, you can't go any further unless you get your GED. And that at the age of 19, that's what I did.
Nice. And you're doing all this while being a teenage mom, dealing with a whole bunch of what was going through your mind at this point. Well, I know you talk about mind shift, and what was the mindset of a teenager at this point,
Mm.
having to deal with what most adults would find difficult.
Well, for me, there was only one path forward, and that was education.
Mhm.
I looked at it as there's something in front of me that's pulling me towards it. I knew that I had to do it. So much so that I'd go to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes or get up at 3, depending where it was at. Sometimes I'd sleep very little, 2, 3 hours a night, get up the next morning. By 4 o'clock, I'm walking down the street with a 2-year-old in my arms, diaper bag, and a backpack to make a 4-hour round trip just to get to school in the morning. Just to get to school in the morning. Okay, forget about like school time. That was simply, it was an 8-hour trip a day.
Oh, wow. So you said the school was the school was very far from you then.
It wasn't very far, yet
Okay.
I could only afford to pay $10 a day for somebody to take care of my son.
Oh, okay. So you had to deal
So
with all that.
I had to deal with, like, make the sacrifice of time and energy to be able to make it happen, and so I had to go from literally, the school was 20 minutes walking distance
Mm.
from where I lived, yet I had to go to another city so my son could be taken care of and then make it to university, and if I had time, I would, eat my cold burrito that made it 3 o'clock in the morning walking across campus. It's like, okay, I didn't have many choices. What I did see is many opportunities, and
Mm.
that's what kept me moving forward. It's like, I knew I was in the classroom, I knew I was at a disadvantage because they would say things and I'm like, no entiendo. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know what they're saying. But I did invest my time into the library and figuring out things that they were talking about. And I excelled in school. That's the great thing. I did excel in school. I did catch on relatively quickly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know there's a relative resourcefulness with Latinos and Latinas when it comes to being able to do things, and not only do them but do them cheap and within your budget and figure out a way. And I know that's something you probably had to learn early on in life. And what were some of the things that you had to really that you found really difficult during that phase of your life?
I think that the most difficult time was where my family didn't believe in me. I remember having a cousin who would always tell me, she's like, well, you think you're all good just because you're going to university, but like welfare would pay for mine if I want to go. So there was that competition from her end. And, the rest of the family, like, eres bien creída, you think you're better than us. And even my own mother at the time, it was like heartbreaking because my mother would say, like, You should be home taking care of your son. You're going to fail. You should be with your husband." Currently, I had left my abusive partner, and I just wanted to keep moving forward. I think one of the major things that kept me moving forward was my thoughts. It's like, "You got this, Rocio. You got this, Rocio." And I remember even teaching that to my son as well. Like, you can move forward. A little engine that could. I want to tell a little cute story. I remember one day, I think I was almost 20 years old, and I was exhausted. I was working two jobs and going to university full time. Didn't even have a car. I was cleaning homes a couple of days a week and mentoring students to get into through university and then going to school myself. And so I come home in the middle of the day and I need to take him to the doctor and I'm exhausted. And he's like, "Mom, carry me." And we're going up this hill. And I'm like, "Oh, I can't carry him." And I also knew at that age that it wasn't his fault what we were going through. He was not to blame by any stretch of the imagination. And that I had to find a way to communicate with him that would be subtle enough to move him forward and for it to be a pleasant experience. I started telling him, like, "Son, there was this little engine and the little engine that could, and it's going up." And so I'm telling him this journey, and then we get all the way up the hill. No need to discuss anything,
Mhm.
right? Simply a fun, engaging experience where both of our needs got met. He got up the hill, right? And I got up the hill too, being exhausted and still made it through.
Nice. Yeah, it's as someone who's a parent right now, with my 11-year-old, I'm always contemplating and thinking about the life lessons I'm teaching her, and the life lessons that were different from what was taught to me, and how, not even just what, but how they were taught to me. And I think you made a great point of saying that he was not to blame, where lots of times parents in difficult situations um, find a scapegoat for it, and sometimes all that pressure puts on the kid. So, and so when you were raising your son, especially being so young and dealing with all this stuff, how did you how did you try to find that balance of being able to raise and teach those life lessons while still dealing with your own set of youth lessons that you were dealing with?
That's a very great question. I just did it. Okay, I made a conscious choice to do it. As a very young person in years prior, I remember being 13 years old and looking at the situations in my family, and I'm like, I can see the things, I can connect the dots and see what the outcomes are. And so I made a very intentional decision way before I had children, when I was probably 9 or 10, said, "If I ever have kids, I wanna make sure that my children are happy," right? That they're loved and respected, and, like, I know these things. And so being very intentional was the key. It's like I didn't raise a child. And being very specific, I nurtured a man. I nurtured the man that I wanted him to be. I knew that what I said, didn't do would impact him in the long run. And so I wanted to mold a happy, healthy, nurturing, empathetic individual who valued women and family. Here we go. That's who I raised. That's who I molded into be that man that he became.
That's awesome. And was a lot of that motivation just, I don't want the cycle to be repeated?
Right, and because I knew inside him, and I believe that we all know this inside of ourselves, that it is something that it's intrinsic within all of us. We may lose touch with it. I think it's common for all humanity that we know that there's something better and that we can create it. Sometimes we lose track of it because of poverty, abuse, pressure, stress, whatever that is. For me, it's like a moment to self regulate. Just think about it, take a breath, figure it out. The children are not to blame. Let's move forward. Why?
Nice.
Because I was blamed my whole life as a child. How did
Hmm.
that impact me? Wow. I didn't even think, my mother used to say, "You're the ugliest person ever," right?
Hmm.
"Estás horrible," and,
Hmm.
like, "Found you in a dumpster," like, all those things that impacted me.
Hmm.
And was it stress? Yes. Did she hate her life? Yes. She wanted more for herself, and all of a sudden, she finds herself fast forward stuck with 5 children that she didn't even want to begin with.
Hmm.
And nobody asked her, right? Nobody checked in with her, and I feel like when we sacrifice ourselves for that which we don't even desire, we end up resenting that as well.
Mhm.
Even if we desire a family, we get caught up in the thick of thin things where we're not even conscious that our words, our actions, our physiology, our connection or lack thereof impacts our children.
Yeah. Yeah, kids are a sponge. Every word matters, every action matters, and sometimes we don't think about that because as adults we can interpret things and they just absorb things. So it's being really intentional, I think, for me has been always really important, like how I say things and what I say. Kudos to you for all of that. And obviously we're here now. You
We're
made it through.
made it.
You made
My
it
son made
through.
it, I made it, we both made it.
Yeah, exactly. And so you moved on from what was that, the community college, and then
Yes, I
were
went
you
on to
sorry.
University of Colorado, Denver, and I was actually mentoring students to get into on our campus. There's a community college of Denver, Metro State, and then we also had the University of Colorado, Denver. I was actually taking classes and encouraging my students to take classes in the four-year institutions at the community college level
Nice.
in Price. And so by the time I went on to the university, I only had a few courses to go and to get through it. You know what? I think sometimes the things that we don't talk about us impact us. Los sacrificios, like the
Mhm.
sacrifices that we do for our family. Like I literally almost lost my entire education, right? Based on wanting to support and committing to support my younger siblings and getting them out of trouble and figuring out to make sure that they didn't fall in those footsteps that other family members had fell in. And literally, this is the first time I actually share it publicly here on an interview, and that was that I almost got kicked out of school. I literally had like a 1.7, I don't even remember what it was. And between working a full-time job, working, trying to save teenagers and put them on the right path, keep them out of prison, let's just be honest, right?
Mhm.
Get out there, and then raising a child as a single mother, it's not any easy task for a 22-year-old to handle. And I made a decision at that time. I was working in corporate. I stepped out and said, "Hey, let me focus. Like this has been my dream. Yes, it's been difficult. Yes, and whatever. And yes, it's worth it. It's my dream. I must bring it to fruition." And that's when I ended up quitting my job. I resigned from my job and took out loans and went on and finished my schooling. That was
Yeah.
so important. I was semesters away. I couldn't throw it away.
No, and it's a very mature move that is really difficult. And I think most people don't understand when they think college, they think, oh, it's easy. You just go to class and do nothing else all day. When really, no matter what level, not even including the additional stuff you're dealing with as a single parent trying to make ends meet, college is difficult. College is a lot of stress. There's a lot of time commitment. There's a lot of things that go on. I mean, myself, another one that's also had to deal with a shitty GPA and almost getting kicked out of school, having a whole bunch of loans to get out. But there's the difference between a short-term goal and a long-term goal. And lots of times people focus and say, "Hey, you're wasting your time. You could be working right now." When you're like, "Oh, I know this is going to drive me to the future." So that it's great to hear that despite all of that, you focused on that long-term goal. And how did you always have a long-term goal mindset, or is that something that you slowly had to build?
That's something that I've always had. Even as a little child, I knew that I could live a better life,
Mhm.
that parents are supposed to love and care for their children. Even as a little girl, I knew that education was the way out and the way forward. I've always had this vision that continues to pull me forward. Call it God's source, call it universe, call it what you will. And it's like me llama. It
Mm.
continues to call me towards it. And it's something that's inside of me that wakes me up in the middle of the night. That's when I have my greatest downloads. I'm like, okay, okay, Rocio, take out the phone or take out the piece of paper, start writing. There's so much. It's like, "Brrr," and here we go. There's something inside of my soul that pulls me towards the betterment of humanity.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and you talk about the betterment of humanity. It's like you're dealing with all this stuff in your life, all these challenges, all these obstacles. You're struggling. You're barely making it through, and you still decided, "Hey, I'm going to try to encourage other people to improve their lives." Did you? always have that feeling, or is that always a driving factor to not just improve your life, but improve other people's lives?
It was always a factor. As a matter of fact, in my mid-teens, my family would call me. Grandma would call me, aunts and uncles would call me to get advice from me. Okay, mind you, I was 15, 16, 17 years old, and they're calling me for advice. It was something that's always been inside of me, that desire to help people. By the time I was 19, I was mentoring students to get into through university and so forth. So it's something that's always been in my heart. It's something that I love watching people thrive. I love watching people have what they want out of life. Some people come to me, they may be in their 20s and they just want to get through university or get that job or raise a family. But also, people come to me. I work with people that are from zero. I work with children very young, from 0 to 80 years of age. The oldest student I graduated was 80 years old. So you can only imagine how people come up. And like, I think we all have regrets, and that's one of the things. It doesn't matter how old we are, it doesn't matter what background we come from, it doesn't matter if we had a loving family or not a loving family. We all have something that holds us back from wherever it is that we desire to be. And for me, it's like I just want to stop that pain for people. I want them to live their version of a happy, healthy, wealthy life, and like to live from a place of joy, to have that peace that I didn't have because I was in survival mode. I was what I call in high thriving survival mode. Yes, I was on TV. Yes, I was doing all these things. Yes, I was educated, and I was still in survival mode.
And what is that like? Thriving, survival mode, and how does that affect how people act and react?
Right. Okay. Wow. For the way that it showed up for me, I think that's a good way. I'd invite people to reflect on what it is that I say and then reflect on their life to see, like, for me, it was like, okay, I got to go to school because my son needs to be educated, right? He needs to have opportunities. I need to go to work because it's important for us to have a great place to live, a stable place. I didn't come from a stable background. My father would come in some days and say, "Hey, we're moving," and it wasn't like the movers are coming or anything. It's like, "We're leaving." "Yeah, you okay? Get in the car, we're leaving. That's it. You're not taking anything with you." So for me, it was important. And so that survival mode led me to excel in university, right? Although I almost got kicked out. Yes, my GPAs were like 3.8 before all the stuff and that was falling apart before my eyes. It led me to get additional education. It pulled me forward where other people around me in my environment, even other educated individuals, weren't doing the same thing. What that looks like for some of us, for me, it was Rocio is only focused on the goal. That's it. We're focused on the goal, the family. That's it. There's nothing else. There was not much of entertainment or friends or whatever. And it's almost like that. Driving force, although it's great to be accomplishing things, I was missing out of my humanity. And I'm going to share one pivotal moment in my life that everything just shifted. I was 33 years old. I was on top of the world. I had the house, the car, the kid, the everything. My son was graduated from high school. I had graduated from university. We had built a home from the ground up. I had built a business, two businesses, and I was an inventor and I was like enjoying the process. And then I realized at one point, I'm like, I feel unfulfilled. My son left home, and I'm like, but again, what was all this for, right? What was all this struggle for? What was all this sacrifice for to build this? And he's no longer at home. So I felt like empty. There was an emptiness inside of me. And then at the age of 34, literally as I turned 34, it's like the universe knocked on my door and said, "Okay, Rocio, ¿estás lista? Are you ready? Are you ready to wake up? You've been numbing yourself." Had numbed myself and I didn't even know it. At that point, I had been diagnosed with a brain tumor
Oh,
13 days after my 34th birthday. I was in the ER the eve of my birthday. And to understand it, it's like, okay, how does my life shift? And I remember the next morning waking up and I was like a driver. Okay, son, you're going to go, you're going to do your PhD. We lived in a college university city because I wanted him to go to university, all these things. And then that next morning, I lived in Boulder, Colorado, on the north side of it. I look over my home, looked over the Flatirons, and I'm looking over this beautiful rocks. And I'm like, ¿para qué? ¿Para qué? I haven't lived. My son was sleeping in the living room, and I'm like, there's no need to stress him out. It's like, just let him be, like, let him in his humanity. He doesn't have to go out and do things to be happy. He can just be happy. And I remember walking up the stairs, and again, I'm looking over the flat irons and saying, okay, this is the first day of my life. This is the day that I get to live by intention and with intention. It's no longer, it's like, hey, all these goals I need to accomplish. And yes, there's a major point in that. What I would love people to understand is that trauma leads us to numbing. Part of success and part of driving so hard in that high thriving survival mode is numbing ourselves. See, when my son left, I had nothing. I found myself in the middle of the night crying in the parking lot next to my office because uh, I was just alone. And then when fast forward to go heal myself, I left to San Diego. And in that time, I'm like, I didn't know how to create from love. Although I had made that commitment on October 20th, 2009, I didn't know how to create from love. It was just like, okay. It was almost like proving the world, proving my family wrong, proving everything wrong. And it wasn't until that point, it's like, I don't know how to create from love. I don't know how to create from being in a place of not surviving. And and so that was the hardest shift, the hardest mind shift that I had to do, and to transform the way that I was thinking, because it was no longer my son driving me. It was no longer poverty driving me. It was no longer education driving me. It was no longer business driving me. Now I had to drive from, I have a place, I have choice. How do I start to build from that? That was the hardest journey.
Yeah. Um, Thank you for sharing all that. And I have to say, I mean, we talked before, but I've had my own health issues that I think hit me in the similar fashion, where it's like you spend all your time, and it's kind of what helped me drive with this show, where you're driving for this unknown goal of what I think success is. And you get there and it's not enough, and you go move forward and you keep moving those goalposts and you keep moving those goalposts, and you're never happy and you're always chasing. And then something knocks you on your ass and you have to reflect and what's become more important. And when I was in college, I struggled with a lot of stuff. And there came a point where I started doing much better in college. And that was when I stopped giving a shit. Like I stopped worrying and I stopped caring where, like, oh, I'm going to hand this paper in late because if I hand it in today, I'm going to fail. And then my A minus goes down to a B plus. Well, I would have got a D if I handed it on time, but I stopped giving a shit. And slowly I stopped stressing and I stopped, and my mindset changed. Like you said, the mind shift of what helped me get better was not continually doing the same thing over again and wondering why. And
Yes.
and
Yeah.
so yeah. So I'm just sorry. I just not really a question. It was just more reflection on what you were telling me. It's just like, yeah, I felt that way, and now that I'm here, and I had to question how many more years I have in this world. I keep talking about I'm trying to squeeze out as many extra years as I can, and what is the meaning that I'll be leaving behind when I move forward. So I just have to reflect on what you were saying because it hits me hard. The words you're saying, because I'm dealing with that right now as well. So.
It's fascinating when we come across that point again, 34 years old that day, the next day, 14 days after my birthday, and thinking this is the first day of my life.
Mhm.
First of all, the doctor told me on the 19th, same day that I was MRI'd, same day that I was talked with. I demanded to speak with the doctor. And I started to see all the things that were important. Number one, the doctor said you could have a stroke and die any moment. And I'm like, wow. Like, ahora qué? Like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna dedicate my life to? How do I live with intention? And I remember my best friend was there that morning when the doctors called me and said, "Hey, you have a rare brain tumor, and you can die any moment." And I'm like, "Okay, thank you. Let's deal with it as a business transaction." That's
Yeah.
survival mode. That's
Yeah.
survival. to the core. That's that's disconnecting from our humanity. I disconnected from my humanity. I disconnected from my feelings. And I remember going immediately to my friend. I'm like, okay, like all the things that I was putting off that I didn't think they were that important, like I had reconnected with the brother. I had just found out that I had nieces. And it's like, I want to go get me a plane ticket. I want to leave. I want to go see my brother. I want to go meet my nieces for the first time. I want to do this, that, the other. Like all the things that were important were now at the forefront. Why did I have to wait until being faced with death to be able to do that? That was the hardest thing. And then fast forwarding, coming back to San Diego on June 16th, 2011, I'm there in San Diego and I'm like, okay, what do I do now? What do I do with my life? And then people are calling me like, Rocio, I need your energy. And like, they want me to coach them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how can these people that I help mold have a better life than I do? And I wasn't talking about the time, the energy, the money, the resources, the education, the accolades, the achievements. What I wanted was my mother's love. I literally would have packed everything and put it in a box and said, "Here you go. You can have it all as long as you can give me my mother's love." And that was the beginning of my journey. That was the beginning of my journey of learning, of healing, of understanding that it wasn't her love that I wanted, it was my love. I didn't love myself, and I
Mm,
didn't even know it.
mhm,
From the outside, it looked perfect, man. Rocio lived like a princesa, okay? The clothes, the whatever, like the Band-Aids, let's just put them like that's what they are. It's Band-Aids to cover everything up, and I was so numb that at that point, when I started to realize I put myself into my own coaching system, I had realized nobody's ever coached me. I've been coaching and helping people, like, "¿Quién me ayuda a mí?" Nobody's helped me. Like, how do I continue to move forward and help myself in a way that is productive for me?
mhm.
That's where this whole mind shift journey began for me in a very different way.
Nice. And so, just to go quick backtrack, health wise, your tumor, did everything turn out okay with that, or are you still dealing with it? Or
It's a great question. The tumor's in remission.
good.
I had a high dose of radiation, only able to have once, and that was it. And from that point forward, it's whatever it is. The only thing that I know is that I get to live my life the way that I choose to live my life. And I've been asked that question many times, like, Rocio, like, what are you doing on the stage if you don't know what's happening? Does it really matter?
Mhm,
Does it really matter? It's like, it's not how I died that mattered. It's how I lived
mhm.
that matters. And I choose to live full out.
Right. And so, what came next after you starting your life over? Day one, you're moving forward. What's next?
Day one, here I am again in San Diego. And I was like, when I made that realization, nobody's ever coached me. And I decided to turn coaching onto myself. I started learning from a lot of different people. I went to many different world renowned experts and learning here, there. And then I recognized that nobody had the secret answer. I knew that if I didn't resolve whatever was inside of me, and it had nothing to do with health, although there was a brain tumor that it could have killed me, it didn't have to do anything with health. It's like that it had to do with whatever was unresolved. And oh boy, let me tell you, like life peeked its ugly head
Mhm,
in ways that I could have never imagined, where I was seeing the trauma. And it's like I had to dance with my trauma. I had to see my trauma. I didn't even see them like prior to that. I was like, oh, my parents did the best that they could with what they had. No, so I was kid. They did the worst they could with what they had. And in the way that really impacted me as a human being and really could have let me I'm an enigma. I could have been dead way, in my teens because of that. Really looking at it, I put myself into this personal development arena. I discovered that nobody had the answer, that the answer was within me. All of the answers were within me. And then I started coaching myself. I would walk around and I'm like, I'm telling my clients, you have a problem. Your father didn't show love to you. How about you show it to yourself? What didn't you hear?" And I'm like, "What about you, Rocio?" And so I started looking, literally, I started looking in the mirror and I'm like, "Hey, Rocio, by the way," I'm like, "I love you, little girl." Like all the things I never heard from my family, from my mother and father, like, "Hey, little girl, you're amazing. Hey, little girl, we're so proud of you." And I'm like, hasta que me la creí, until I started to affirm. As I affirmed, I confirmed.
Mhm.
And when it was confirmed, then this whole new being emerged, and it took what it took. And I was like the pit bull that grabs on so hard that it's not going to let go until it gets what it wants.
Mhm.
That was me. There was no way in the world that I was not going to see my son ever again because I knew it would kill me. I'm not sure if you know the statistics right now. They've discovered that the vast majority of diseases have to do with unresolved trauma and
Mhm.
emotions. They're stuck in the body. They just manifest as disease. And so I went through this amazing transformation. I started journaling like I had never journaled before. I started doing my affirmations. I started doing physical exercises to retrain my mind and my body. And then I started teaching that to others.
It's the affirmation part. It's we talked about kids and how they're sponges and words and everything matter, but as adults, they still matter. And sometimes just saying simple things, like you said, I love myself, I love you, you know what I mean? Or you're doing great. Those little affirmations, eventually you start to believe them. And so it's a great thing. And I guess this kind of goes into what we'll go into next, I guess, is with your mind shift system. You know, how did that evolve from what you were doing?
Well, so because the system was so successful and I was teaching it to people, and my commitment on October 20th, 2009 was to serve humanity in a different way. It was at that moment is that I owned my gifts. Although I had been coaching, I never had seen it as a job, or I never had seen it as a career for myself. I was like, ha, something that I do. It's like I'm naturally competent at it. Doesn't everybody know this? And then when I embraced it, I said, wow, I helped myself. I was helping clients. I was watching people transcend their limitations, impose perceived limitations, because we also have perceived limitations. And I immersed myself into studying. You know, when they said 10,000 hours, well, you probably multiplied that by 10 itself. Because I was like studying and listening to audio and reading books and taking conferences. And that's one of the things that helped me. So I said, okay, now you're helping yourself, you're helping others, but what happens to the people that cannot afford it? What of the people, if they don't have time, they may have money. If they have money, they don't have time. Like, or, you know, whether it's time or money or energy or whatever, I'm like, it shouldn't be the case that only the people who can afford it or have the time that can do it and coach themselves. And it's like, oh, so again, turning coaching onto yourselves, I created the MindShift game. It's part of the MindShift system. And part of the MindShift system helps people do the very things that I have been doing naturally as a little child. That's how I survived, telling myself that I could. So it's about taking courageous actions. Courageous actions lead into boosting your confidence. Boosting your confidence leads into discovering your vision, your mission, not mother, father, teacher, preacher's vision. Not because I'm a first gen does that mean that I get to follow somebody else's dream. I have a dream. And then into that is like really stepping into our power and having those conversations, doing the things that are important, and then stepping into our energy, owning it as the life and the world depends on it, because it does. Our life depends on it. And so all of these are affirmation cards where, and I'm going to read a couple of them. I take charge of every moment in every area of my life. How powerful is that? As people read it over and over, just like I did. These are very, very intentional. And I share very intentional because I spent months with an entire team working on every single word that we put on here. As a matter of fact, last night I was at a organizational event, and someone told me, "Wow, you know, I'm doing my affirmations as well, and they're great." And they started sharing their affirmations, and I've heard this many, many times. They were programming themselves negatively. and expecting something positively. And they thought because simply they were doing affirmations that they were perfect. Well, if we start to affirm, affirm, affirm something that's negative, like if I keep on saying, hey, I'm never going to steal, I'm never going to steal, or I'm never going to hurt somebody, just repeat after me. Say that phrase without the word no.
Mhm. You said, "I'm never gonna steal." It's replaced with, "No, I'm gonna steal."
That's exactly what we're
Okay.
saying,
Okay.
right? We cannot not think of something, right? And when people are like, "I'm never gonna give up on my dreams," it's like, you're programming, "I'm going to give up on my dreams,"
Mhm.
because the mere fact that you're actually saying that is actually programming you. And for me, I'm very, very intentional on what I hear. It's like it's almost like somebody says something negative, it screeches in my soul, in my ears. It's like chalk on the chalkboard. And so we created this entire deck of cards so that people can go ahead and program themselves. It's like because we do every single day, we're already programming ourselves. Why not be intentional about it? Why not program ourselves? Why not play a game that's fun and easy and exciting? And you start to see yourself shift and your energy shift. And people around you are like, hey, what happened to you, Marcos, Maria, Paco, what's going on with you? You look great. I always hear people like, "You're glowing." I'm like, "Life is great." So that the game comes with a guide that teaches people like start wherever you want to start. You get to choose where you want to start. And then it has a journal, and the journal walks you through an entire process every day, starting with gratitude. Self-efficacy, we're one of the only, if not the only people in the world that talk about self-efficacy. And that's helping people self-regulate. It's getting out of that survival mode.
Mhm.
Human being, we can throw ourselves into survival mode simply by thought alone. We could even do it by breathing. We can do it by physiology. Simple. I can show you somebody, show me right here, right now, what does a person look like when they're depressed? Physiology.
Yeah. I don't know.
And most of the time it's like this is as fast because I do this on a global scale. I'm like, show me physiologically what a person looks like when they go into depression. It's like,
Yeah.
it's that fast. So if I understand that depression is can also be and mind you, there are people who do need some support in the different ways, but sometimes it's also our physiology.
Mhm.
It takes us into depression. How we hold our body, how we're breathing, the thoughts that we're thinking. Our thoughts tell our body what to feel. Our body
Mhm.
tells our mind what to think.
Mhm.
And this is this vicious circle.
Yeah.
And so my goal in life is to help people take control of their life, take charge of their life, to live the life that they came here to live, which is to be happy, to enjoy it, to be in peace and harmony. Yes, there's stress. Stress only means that there's growth. When there's prolonged stress, that's where disease comes from.
Mhm.
That's survival mode, even if you're high thriving.
Mhm. Yeah. I really like especially the aspect you're talking about, like the removing the negative connotations and stuff, because it's, every parent is a coach to their kid kind of deal. You're constantly trying to teach them lessons and show them hopefully things to improve their lives. And one of the things I like to do with my daughter is make sure she doesn't fear challenges and failures, so
Mhm.
that, so for her it's like she tells me I can't do this. I'm like, it's not that you can't do this. It's just you don't have enough experience to make it easy for you yet. But if you keep working at it, you'll get there. So it's constantly like telling her, hey, these are just challenges that are going to improve your life. They're not something you can't do. And she's gotten better. Like she's big on soccer. But, she's like, oh, maybe I should try out for the select team because it'll be more of a challenge, and I think I'll get better. Uh, Doing this harder level stuff. And so I see it slowly building up on her. So I can, like, it's like you said, it's like these little things that build up to these big changes, that your game, I think, hopefully gives people that opportunity, to slowly incorporate these
Mhm.
tasks that eventually they might not need the game anymore because they're doing it on their
Right.
own.
And they start to do it on their own, and here's something that's magical about the game, it's played in 8-week rounds.
Hmm.
Play it every day, 3 times a day, every day, 3 times a day. You're developing a pattern that you're right, in time, in the perfect time for you, because it also depends on your intensity, right? And your commitment and what you get to do.
Mhm.
And the perfect time for you based on what you're the effort that you're putting into it, that you'll be there and it's like automatic. It's automatic. It's automatic. It's like I get to do this. I want to share a quick story because I think it's fun. You talked about fear, and that was one of the things that when I was molding my son, I wanted to make sure that he was solid. And now with my grandchildren, I remember my grandson was about 18 months old and I put him up in the air and he's like, I could feel him shake. And I'm like, not under my watch. Okay. Because I know the impact of what's going to happen. And I remember as he was growing up, I would teach him. He's like, I want to go on the monkey bars. And I'm like, you got this. And repeat after me. I got this. I got this. I got this. And there was a point in time when, right pre COVID, literally pre COVID, it was that February. He was 4 years old, going on 5. And I'm like, catch, we're playing catch and he couldn't catch and he's like catching like this. I'm like, it's not a beach ball, right? So he's not going to catch. And by the end of that visit, he's catching like this. Next time I come around, I'm like, let's go play catch. And he's like, no, I can't get it. And I'm like, nope. Those are like, let me share with you, little child. No. One way, I'm like, okay, I see that. I get to change that in him. I get to mold something in him. And I'm like, okay, repeat after me. And he was used to repeating after me. And I'm like, I've got this. And so he's standing, and I have video of this. He's standing up there and he's like, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. And I saw him get into the peak state. And I got this. I threw over the little hacky sack and he caught it for the first time. And I'm like recording him. And he's like, let me see, let me see, let me see. And he caught almost every single time
Nice.
after. Why? Because he got into a peak state of mind. He went from the I can't, which are the most dangerous words that I consider in the world, to I can,
Mhm.
and I got this.
Yep. It's funny. I love talking to you today, by the way, because you keep telling these stories, and it hits me with something that I've dealt with too, where it's like, sometimes you read something at the right time, and it
Mm,
kind of changes your perspective of everything. And like early, like after my daughter was born, I just happened to see an article that talked about um, teaching kids to take risks at an early age, even on a monkey bar, where they're afraid to climb up to the highest bar, and teaching them to take that risk and move forward builds these stepping stones that will lead to more successful adults because they're not afraid of taking risks as adult. They're not afraid to start that company or apply for that job or go to those classes or learn something new because at an early age they learn to deal with the idea that risk could bring reward and they're not scared of it. And
mm,
that whole concept, like you say with your grandson, where it's like, I can't, I can't, I can't. I mean, I'm the same way. And it's like you're slowly teaching them, encouraging them to say, there's no such thing as you can't. I tell all the time, there's no such thing as you can't. It's just you haven't gotten enough experience to make it easy yet. You know what I mean? And you're getting there. So I
mm,
love, and like I said, it's been great today talking to you because you keep hitting me over the head with stuff that I'm like, yes, yes. I feel that. I love that. So,
mhm.
so obviously you have your game, and then you also have for the mind shift system
Yes.
what you guys you said a university. You're starting a university.
We have a university and it launches today.
Nice.
Launching today, and it's beautiful. It's like we have it in both in English and Spanish, and it's about how to be confident and be you. How do we overcome fear? How do we embrace our uh, actually even embracing even our own imposter syndrome can help us. There's a time to use it, there's a time to not. There's a time to be aware. There's a time not to be aware of things, and there's a time to embrace things. So what we're doing is helping people being more confident in and achieving what they want to achieve. So we have the MindShift University classes on psychological safety, change management, being confident, being you, seeing your blind spots, figuring out where you've been and how you move forward. And then we also have our books, I have a book series. This is Unstoppable. This is a workbook that helps people achieve what they want to achieve. You can go through this book a million times, and a million times you will find something new because you're constantly evolving. And we have that one in Spanish, Imparable, Siete Pasos
Nice.
para ser un líder más proactivo. And then, this is one of our books, The Hispanic Journey. And then this is our latest book right here, which is Fortaleza. These are stories from mind, body, and soul, from that strength that we draw. These are 22 co-authors, including myself, in across the nation that have made a commitment to helping our youth, to helping people see the resilience of our gente. How do we move forward? So everything that we do is to help people achieve the life that they desire,
Nice.
whether it's through our books, through our games, through our keynotes, through our coaching, through any of our products and services. And we also have a TV show called the Mind Shift Game TV show.
Nice. Nice. And what is that TV show? Is it like people playing the game or is it like
It's actually people listening to the coaching aspect
okay.
to get coaching. It's on one of the an amazing platform called Expand ITV. It's like the Netflix
Hmm.
of the coaching world.
Oh, nice.
So which is really neat. So I share thoughts and insights on how people can continue to move forward. You know, anytime that you can do work one on one with us or as a group, it's always very, very beneficial. And then, you know, as you see it, right? It's like watching something on YouTube. Is it the
Hmm.
same thing? Oh, it's great. And the in person, I want to be in the concert. I want to listen to the conversation. I want to feel the music and the vibes. And that changes. So
Nice. And so with everything that you guys are doing and all the help you're providing people, what's some of the biggest takeaway that you want people to realize that come for these, mind shift games and the mind shift system and your leadership and your coaching? What's one of the biggest things you guys like to emphasize?
that you can do this, that any one of us can transform our lives at any given point in time. Our minds are malleable, our minds can shift over and over again. The earlier we do it, younger we do it, it's going to be easier. Okay. It's easier for me to coach somebody that's, 10 years old versus somebody that's 30 or 40 years old. There's a difference, right?
Hmm.
I think about it being as concrete. The older we are, there's a layer of concrete, layer of concrete, layer of concrete. And in time, that layer of concrete's going to look like this thick, right? Is it this thick or is it this thick? Right.
Hmm.
So it's going to be the major difference in what level of commitment that we can transform our lives, that it is in our hands, that it is by instinct, that we were born perfect, whole, and complete as human beings, and that everything that we have lived is what we have learned. Okay, automatically. We have learned more from the ages of 0 to 7 than what we will for the rest of our lives. How
Hmm.
wild is that? Although we think we get PhDs, MDs, one, two, threes, whatever, the learning that goes into the individuals is far greater. So I have a huge place in my heart for children, and I would love for parents to invest in their children. The earlier that we can do
Hmm.
that, the more that we're changing our children's lives, for the seventh generation, that impact. And also for those of us who are teens or adults, hey, take it into your own hands. Don't wait for somebody. Like a lot of people are like, well, my boss isn't invested in it, so I'm not going to do it. It's like, Ike, Ike,
Hmm.
right? And also that your greatest investment is always going to be in your mind. Always
Hmm.
going to be in your mind. You buy this brush, that brush is only going to serve you, but it doesn't give you anything more other
Hmm.
than you use it to apply the powder on your face. And when you invest in your mind over and over and you shed that layer and shed that layer and shed that layer, you reconnect with your intuitive wisdom that allows you to create things even faster. See, after my trauma healing, I was able to not only heal, also I was able to move forward faster. The thoughts, the ideas, the things that were before me that I hadn't seen that now I see have helped me move forward. So I want people to live as a happy life as they are willing to put the effort into.
Nice. And I love the fact that it's what you guys do open for children too. And do you guys do like anything like on the parent side? Like, how can I be a better parent with the stuff that I do?
Yes, most definitely. We have a coaching system that helps parents. I do guide people through that. I've been teaching parenting classes for the last 22 years, over 22 years, and help them mold because one of the things that I see is I go all the way to my oldest clients and see how life impacted them. I
Hmm.
have a client that's 83 years old. Let
Nice.
me tell you how it impacted that individual. They're
Mm.
still suffering. They're
Yeah.
83, right? 60, you name it, psychologists, doctors, investors, people, they've all been impacted. And it didn't matter if they came from poverty It didn't matter if they came from wealth. It didn't matter. The human experience is the human experience. As a matter of fact, some people who came from more actually are suffering even more because
Mhm.
they had a lack of attachment.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes when we think about here's the mind shift that I would like people to do is when we think about adversity and poverty, um, it's not always a bad thing, right? Like adversity, actually, imagine if you think about it, like, hey, we have $10 for dinner. What are we going to do? And let's work together as a team. And then, like, there's that attachment, there's that bonding, there's that collaboration, all of that, as opposed to, hey, you're going to be sent away for school somewhere.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's a difference.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we talked about the resourcefulness of our people. I think from
Mm.
poverty, we're able to squeeze out as much as we can, make big foods, and from the cheapest meats and eat great. So it's yeah, that sometimes you need uh, if you garden, some plants that grow on the ground without hard ground, they don't grow big, So
Right.
if the ground is too soft, you get little, like potatoes and stuff like that. They won't grow without that pressure. So,
Right.
sometimes it's like that. So, that's awesome. And one other question I have is: have you talked to your son about everything in your life and your journey with him, and had reflections on, what are the life lessons, and what can you and I do to do a better job with the grandkids moving forward?
We haven't had conversations like that. We have had like bigger vision conversations. I feel like he's taken his own lessons and taught him in the way that's important for him to teach him to his son, next generation, different ways of molding, because there's always something that we get to shed, right?
Hmm.
And um, and mold it within ourselves. I know I recently shared a vision that I had shared with him when he was 16 years old. He's 33 now.
Hmm.
Like, son, remember I said I would build this thing, and like, how cool would it be to build a program that's going to help people and families? And so I'm like, son, I built it. I
Hmm.
built it. And like, I didn't even know. I was just like pedal to the metal, focus, 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 focus. And then now when we look at it, this provides well being.
Hmm.
This provides self regulation. This provides people a better, happy, healthier relationship, marriage, whatever, job, life experience, because now we're even more aware of how we've been creating our world, and we get to intentionally mold that experience for ourselves. So that's something that I know he's very proud of. He's always talked about me. When kids talk about their parents behind their back, mine talked in a very positive way. I would go to school and people and the teachers would say, like, Victor, like, let me show you what he wrote about you. Like, he's so proud of you.
Hmm.
Or parents, friends' parents would say the same thing. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And I remember him being 11 years old and he's like running down the stairs. He's like, Mom, um, well, how come you're different? And I'm like, what are you talking about, son? How come you're different? He goes, why? Like my uncles, they're drinking and driving and yelling at their kids, and you're doing different things.
Hmm.
And all I can say is that this is what I choose for us, right? That I get to choose. Like life is a choice. What it is that we're living outside of us came from inside of us.
Hmm.
And if we change the inside of us, our mind, our body, the way that we processed emotions or the way emotions are stuck in our bodies, then we can move forward and we can free ourselves and see things that we hadn't seen because now we're free.
Yep. Yep. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, so usually around the time, I like to ask a couple questions in the end of our interview. But if you could go back in time, especially since you deal with kids now, but with what you know now, and go back to your younger version of yourself, and coach yourself and give yourself some advice, what's something you would have told yourself?
I would have said, I love you. I would have said, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. I can't tell you how many times I see people like when I coach them, they break down. They literally break down. They're sobbing. They can't do it. They can't even see themselves in the eyes. I couldn't see myself. I would tell myself that I have the power to transform my life and that I'm the only one. Like I've always knew that I was the only one. I would definitely encourage myself. That's what I would say. I love you. I love you. I love you. You're
Nice.
and you're
That's
worth.
yeah. That's awesome. That's really amazing. And like you said, words matter. And so um I'm glad that's something that you would go back. Lots of, you never know what people are gonna say. Sometimes I'm always shocked by this answer too. So it's always great. And then finally, how do you say success in Spanglish? What does success mean to you?
Success to me, when you said that, I'm like, éxito. And like what success means to me is whatever I want to live, whatever I choose to live, whatever makes my heart sing. What success means to me is that it is, it's about love. It's about being in peace and in harmony with myself. It's about constantly growing and understanding that if I say something, when I say something to individuals, I say it because it's from a place of love.
Hmm.
Where sometimes we get like, "Oh my gosh, like, she really said that?" And it's like, I say it because I love you. I say it because I want something for you. I say it because I'm willing to be uncomfortable in that to see whatever comes out for your own good, to know that there's a ripple effect. So success means to me a lot of things. It means living a happy life. It means it means enjoying a moment. Um, yeah, it means enjoying a moment with people.
Awesome. Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier about the goalposts constantly shifting sometimes when what our definition of success is, and until you just do what you want and you're not worried about you're not keeping up with the Joneses, you're gonna be much happier. So
Yes.
yeah. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to jump on here with me and share your story. It's been great. Like I said, you've hit me over the head a few times and made me go, oh. Yes. So I hope others will listen in as well and get the same feeling that I had during this interview. But if you want, tell me, you have plug anything you want, your websites or whatever
Yeah.
things you're doing. So
Thank you. The MindShift Game. Look at it. Look us up. It's the mindshiftgame.com. You can also look me up on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook, Instagram. Check it out. Call us. Give us a call. Send us a message. 303-587-8367. 303-587-8367. And take actions. Live your life on your terms. Create the life that you'd love and desire. And it is possible for you to have what you desire.
nice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rocio. I really appreciate you taking the time today. And I look forward to see what you have next. So,
Thank you so much.
very awesome. And for everyone else listening, once again, thank you so much for joining me. And I hope you join me again next time as we continue to learn how to say success in Spanglish.